What do you do when your team just isn't improving? No matter how many times you train them or try to give them feedback. You try and nothing's working. We've tried to soften our message and be really nice about it. We've tried the tough love, but no matter what, we just haven't seen our team improve. And we wind up just thinking to ourselves, you know what? It's better if I just avoid these conversations entirely and I just get in there. It's faster and easier if I just get in and fix it myself. I have seen this pattern play out again and again and again. And what happens is that the founder ends up compensating for their team's underperformance with their own time, energy, and effort. And not only is that incredibly frustrating, but it's also just not scalable. What is scalable is learning how to deliver feedback in such a way that actually levels up team performance. And so in this video, I am going to break down exactly how I do that as a founder and leader of an A-player team, as well as a coach who has helped hundreds of founders go through this exact process. So first step to making performance feedback conversations successful is how you show up to that conversation. Do you show up as a critic or do you show up as a coach? I genuinely believe that the world's best leaders are actually just coaches. They see their job not as telling the person what to do or forcing them to do something, but as supporting and coaching to get the highest levels of performance out of their team. Here's why this is so important. Because in the coaching mindset, giving feedback is an act of service, right? Like my job as a coach is to tell you where you can get better. My job as a coach is to support you in growing into your highest level of performance and output. That is my job. That is me doing my best work for you. And so when we approach the conversation, not from judgment, not from criticism, not from trying to force somebody to do different or do better, but instead as a coach who is there through love and service to help this person level up into their highest potential. Not only does the emotionality and the tone and the body language and all of those things change, not only is the conversation going to sound and feel entirely different, but there is a very important change that takes place, which is that before it was me versus you, right? Me on one side of the table, you on the other side. It's us against each other and me telling you what needs to be different. If I show up as a coach, it is now us versus the problem. If I'm your coach, then we are on the same team. We are on the same side of this table. I'm not coming at you. I'm not attacking you. I am working with you to identify the problem and find a solution that is going to support you in growing through that blocker or through that challenge or through that gap. When the conversation shifts from me versus you to us versus the problem, what we do is we get around our team's natural defensiveness, right? If it's me versus you and my boss is coming at me, my natural response is you, right? Or it's fight, it's flight, it's defensiveness. I'm either gonna shut down, I'm gonna fight back, but what I'm definitely not gonna do is hear your feedback with humility and coachability and actually internalize it so I can make change, right? So the first thing we need to do is we need to sidestep our team's natural ego and their natural defensiveness that we all have as human beings when we hear constructive criticism. And the best way to do that is by putting ourselves on the same side of the table. It's not me versus you. I am here to be your coach. We are on the same team, and it is us versus the problem. Okay, so that is how you need to walk into these conversations. You can literally tell your team, hey, I am here to be your coach. It's us versus the problem. Here's how I see the situation, right? We can explicitly set the frame and set the ground rules to set us and our team up for success when it comes to having these conversations. Okay, so that's step number one. Now let's get into how do we actually have the conversation? How do we actually deliver feedback? The most important thing that our team needs from us is clarity, right? I cannot tell you how many times I've sat down with a client and they're like, Jhana, they just don't get it. They're just not leveling up. I'm so frustrated. They keep dropping the ball. And the first thing I'll ask them is, well, have you told them this? And they're like, well, kind of. What do you mean kind of? Have you told them exactly where the gap is? Have you told them exactly what is frustrating or what is not working around their performance? Have you laid it out with as much black and white clarity as you can? Why? Because our team cannot read our minds. Our team actually doesn't know that they're underperforming or that these are specific gaps that are holding them back or holding the business back. Half the time I see underperforming teams, it's because the leader has not told them that there's a problem, or if they have not given clarity on exactly what the gap is so that their team can then turn around and do something about it. So clarity is the first step. So how do we create clarity? We create clarity by first saying, here is the bar. This is what success looks like. This is what I expect. And then here's you. Here's the exact gap in performance or in output that we need to close between where you are today and what the company needs in this role. So clarity actually starts with us. Clarity starts with us setting the bar and getting really, really clear on what do I expect in this role other than just better, right? Like what exactly does an A player look like? And this is such a common problem, especially at the leadership level within the businesses that we work with, that I created an entire tool called the Leadership Scorecard that breaks down a job scorecard for all of the most important roles inside of your business and gives you a simple tool and a simple framework to hold your team accountable to those scorecards. So if you want that, if your team is underperforming or you're not entirely clear on what A player performance should look like, then I am actually giving you that tool entirely for free. You can grab it in the description. There's a whole video walkthrough on what it is and how to use it. And that is where we need to start if we want to truly level up our team's performance, right? Because I can't say level up. I have to say level up to this, level up in this way, level up from this KPI to this KPI. Our team needs clarity if we're ever going to give them a true chance at rising to meet our clearly defined expectations. Okay, so now that we have that tool, we've built the job scorecards, we know exactly where the gap is and exactly what success looks like. How do we deliver this to our team in an effective way? The way I like to think about this is that by providing that super clear feedback and being as explicit and direct as possible, we are giving our team clarity around the what, right? What does success look like? What is the bar that I expect you to hit? And why? Why does it matter? Why do I need this level of performance in the role? Why does the company need this level of performance in the role, right? So we've defined the what, and we've defined the why. The key to successful feedback is that we then transfer ownership over the how. How are you going to close this gap? That is such a powerful and important question, because in saying that, what we have done is we have transferred ownership over this problem to them. What we're not saying is, hey, you're not good enough and here's how I'm gonna fix it for you. What you're saying is, hey, here's a gap between you and where you need to be. This is your gap to own. What are you going to do about it? And how can I, as a coach, support you in your growth, in your level up? Right? We are positioning this gap as an opportunity. This is your opportunity to grow. This is your opportunity to get better. We both know that you're fully capable of it. So how are you going to close the gap? And then what do you need from me to support you in that? When the ownership stays with them, that is when we unlock our team's true ability to grow and to get better. Versus when we try to solve it for them, even with the best intentions, we are robbing them of ownership, and therefore we are robbing them of their ability to rise to the occasion. So step one is create clarity, answer what and answer why. Step two is transfer ownership over the how. They are responsible for figuring out how they are going to close the gap. Your job is to be the coach that is supporting them through that process. Meaning you're still very engaged. You're still asking questions. You're still voicing ideas. You guys are co-creating a solution, but it is their gap to own. Therefore, it is their solution to come up with and to execute. So now we understand the tactical around how to have this conversation. There's a final really important point I will leave you with, which is that if we've truly embraced this coach mindset, then what is our job? Our job is to not just step in and be a coach when something's wrong. A coach doesn't just give feedback when a player is underperforming. A coach gives feedback even to their best players, because they understand that the job of feedback isn't to take somebody from bad to good. We don't just level people up to good enough and then go hands off. Our job is to take people from good to great. And there is always room for growth. There is always room for improvement. Even our best players have things that they could be doing better, could be working on, and in fact, our A players love and welcome the feedback because all they want is to grow and to get better. So our job as a manager, as a coach, is not to only be present and only give feedback when something's wrong. Then our team knows that, oh man, I only talk with my boss when I'm in trouble. And they are immediately shut down. They are immediately defensive, and they're immediately expecting a negative conversation. Versus if we as a manager on a consistent basis, like I do this every single week, I'm sitting down with the team and saying, here's where you're crushing it, and here's where you have room to get even better. Here is your next growth curve. Here is your next opportunity to grow. Then even when there is negative feedback, even when they are underperforming, they're still seeing it through that same lens, which is my boss is here to be a coach, to be a support, to help me level up to my highest, to help me grow and get better all the time. And yeah, there's some things that I'm not doing well enough that need to be brought up to standard, but mostly I'm crushing it. And here's my opportunity to get even better. What it does, it takes all the heaviness, all of the weight, all of the discomfort out of these conversations, and it brings your team to the table if we've done this correctly, not just willingly, but enthusiastically. Like if we've really done this correctly, our team is going to show up and ask for our feedback. They're going to come in every week and be like, hey coach, how'd I do and where can I get better? And when that is the dynamic that we have unlocked, that is when we truly get the highest levels of performance from our team and how we build a culture where everyone is constantly growing and leveling up all the time. So we are now equipped. We know how to show up to these conversations and how to lead our team members through to a place of growth and level up. What happens if they don't grow? What happens if they don't level up? That is a very important question. There is actually a process that you can follow. And I actually learned this process from my original ops mentor, Layla Hermosi. She calls it manage up or manage out. And this is the process through which we either level up our team's performance or we get the B and C players off the bus. So if you want the full breakdown of the step-by-step, how do we manage up or manage out, I created an entire video on this framework. You can check it out. It's gonna pop up in the corner right at the end of this video, because here's the truth. You deserve an A-player team, but an A-player team needs an A-player coach. So check out the next video to understand the process behind becoming a player coach for your team you are fully capable of and that they ultimately deserve. Good luck, and I will see you over there.